Corey Johnson from Ripple is going to interview Nisha Hathi of Schwab, who is the Chief Digital Officer there, and Rob Goldstein, who's the COO and heads all technology matters at BlackRock. So we've got a great conversation with a great moderator, and I welcome them out here. Please.
Hey. How much do you love John Chambers? That was just great. So we're going to talk about finance and technology, and you know, I've seen it from all sides. Obviously, I've seen it as a journalist, which I used to be. I've seen it now. I see it as someone who's selling software to financial institutions, which is what we do at Ripple, whether it's banks or whatever. But you guys are in a very interesting spot where you've got two companies in Schwab and in BlackRock that are increasingly consumer-based, always consumer-facing at Schwab, consumer-facing, but we live in a time when the possibilities are very different. And I wonder, Rob, if I can start with you, how do you look at the most important things for you to capture? Because I'll say, just not for too long a question, but you know, banks have the largest IT budgets in the world, and they've got the opportunity to do almost anything. They also have these deep, often archaic financial structures internally to deal with it. How, as a chief operating officer at BlackRock, do you try to take advantage of the opportunity that new technology can bring?
And it's interesting. Let me start out by clarifying that BlackRock is not a bank.
Right.
So as the world's largest investment manager, it's actually quite interesting because the capabilities that we have, particularly from a technology perspective, have really been designed over multiple decades to analyze portfolios. And the capabilities are really designed to provide great risk transparency into how one would construct portfolios. And what we've been doing from a technology perspective initially started out as leveraging those capabilities internally, and then actually providing those capabilities to other very large asset owners. And now most recently, and this has really been a remarkable thing, empowered and fueled by all of the technology themes that we're all quite familiar with, but most recently we've been providing the capabilities that we developed for very large asset owners. We've been providing them to some of our wealth management partners so they could actually use them to build better portfolios for their end customers.
So you're essentially going down the funnel to smaller piles of assets, but it sounds like you start with eating your own soup.
We eat our own cooking.
Yeah.
And Corey, it's actually very interesting because to a group of us who've had the opportunity to do this for a long time, our dream was always, how do we democratize these capabilities that the world's largest and most sophisticated investors were using? How do we democratize them to like our parents? And I think part of what was driving us is maybe then our parents would understand what we actually do for a living if they could see the output of what we do. But we used to view it actually as an impossible mission. It was impossible because just the amount of information processing that would be required was beyond what was reasonable from a compute perspective. And today, that's been unlocked through the changes in technology that we're all very aware of. What's really cool is that, to a large degree, what really fueled a lot of these efforts in the product that we've been primarily providing to wealth managers, it actually came from a hackathon that we did internally, where myself and some of my colleagues were sitting there as this team was presenting it, and we were sort of whispering to ourselves, like, is this real? Are we really seeing something that's real? And we effectively saw the impossible. And that's the best thing about technology.
Describe a little more. What did it look like? What were we seeing?
It looked like we have very sophisticated risk analytics that we provide to very large asset owners, and they're complicated. This looked like a very simple version of those, and normally when you provide it to a very large asset owner, it'll be for hundreds or thousands of portfolios. They were showing us the same very simple analysis for 1 million portfolios. And when we were watching this demo, we were trying to not get too excited in the room because we were technically hosting the hackathon. But when we were seeing this demo, we were amazed. We were jumping out of our skin because we were seeing the impossible. And I think one of the greatest things about technology is that if you're in it long enough, you get the chance to see the impossible every few years.
So Nisha's Chief Digital Officer at Schwab. What does a Schwab customer see today that they might not have seen 5 years ago because of initiatives that you guys have rolled out?
Yeah, well, the focus of Schwab since, Chuck founded the company 45 years ago has always been around democratizing, actually similar word, democratizing investing for retail investors. And what that used to mean was that you had access to platforms to trade or access to, transferring assets or getting lots of advice, but probably more do-it-yourself advice. And over the last several years...
You mean like look something up on the website,
Exactly.
Find...
Research.
What is this CDO I just bought?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Look,
Maybe not that.
CDO.
Maybe not that.
Research on an equity, research on a mutual fund, right? Tools to create portfolios that you could create yourself and figure out how you wanted to rebalance them and trade them, right? But very much self-service oriented, right? We call it the heritage self-directed investor. We're folks that really knew what they wanted.
The heritage self-directed?
Heritage
You mean like a
self-directed
tomato,
investor.
but different?
Not the older, but the heritage self-directed investor.
I think of a heritage investor.
Well, nowadays, we call the modern self-directed investor. And the modern self-directed investor kind of lives in the world that we all live in, which is there is a lot of information out there. And what I want help with is navigation. I want to know what's right for me. And I expect it to be personalized, and I expect it to be thoughtful and transparent and not make me compromise between low cost and great service. And so the capabilities and the offers and experiences that we've launched over the last few years are much more focused on that. So if I think of our Robo platform, our Schwab Intelligent Portfolios platform, or Schwab Intelligent Advisory, the whole idea there is to automate everything that we can, provide in a very curated, navigatable way for an investor, and then use the technology to try to bring the cost down for the investor and really kind of focus our people on the things that we think people do best, which is a lot more of that emotional connection, kind of asking the question behind the question.
Well, let me ask about that. I mean, John Chambers was just sort of talking about the value and asking questions and listening as opposed to telling. Whenever I'm on board at some new financial product, the questions about my risk tolerance,
Yeah.
they feel so
Yeah.
wrong for me. Like I know how to end up so I'm allowed to trade options, right? So I can just say, I love lots of risk. I'm totally willing to lose all of my money. And those answers were so wrong. I understand risk in a way that, I was a professional investor for a while. I get it. I understand risk in very different ways. I've seen very big swings over the years, and I understand how it works. But those questions never felt like they understood me at all.
Yeah, I think this is actually a great opportunity that we in financial services have a responsibility to figure out how to solve, which is how do we dimensionalize risk better? Because what we do today, like I think of that Intelligent Portfolios flow, there are 3 different questions.
Intelligent Portfolios is your robo-advisor.
Is the
unit,
robo-advisor.
yeah.
And I think about, you go through basically 10 questions. And during those 10 questions, there are 3 questions that actually focus on your risk tolerance and your appetite for risk. Everything from, how would you feel about your portfolio sliding 20% in a day, to actually putting numbers around that based on whatever you think you might want to invest. Trying to really dimensionalize it. But I still don't think I just think as an industry, we haven't done a great job for the average consumer to help them understand what it means to really take a certain amount of risk versus a certain kind of reward.
And if I could just add to that, I think that the challenge as an industry, and this is another example of something that I think technology provides the opportunity to really solve. I think the industry, to a large degree, has developed in terms of building investment products and people buying great investment products.
Yeah.
But having a collection of great investment products doesn't necessarily help you achieve the outcome that you're aspiring to. And even the concept of a risk tolerance questionnaire inherently implies that each product you buy is going to meet that sort of risk tolerance, as opposed to what are you actually trying to do? What are you aspiring to? What is the outcome that you're striving for through your investment portfolio? And then working backwards from there. So it's such a product orientation as opposed to let's start with the outcome,
The goals.
the goals, and then work backwards through technology to really build a portfolio that best helps you achieve those goals.
It sounds like you're talking more about eHarmony than Tinder, for example, right? I mean, no. but
I'm
like-
not
but-
going to fall for that, but
Let me ask you though, Rob, and I'd like to hear from both of you. When you look across the world of technology, what are the customer experiences that you think you're providing or about to provide for your customer?
one of the things that we do at BlackRock through our Aladdin platform is we provide it to roughly 30,000 users at large asset owners. It's an enterprise piece of technology. And I think one of the most meaningful things going on with regard to a technology trend that doesn't get a whole lot of attention, or maybe doesn't get enough attention, is that enterprise platforms traditionally have been built assuming that the end user loves to do his or her job. And the reality is that's just been what the philosophy has been. And they made me take away my phone.
But also like people in the financial business, like being in the financial business, it's hard to think that other people are different. I think everyone in every industry has that thing where they think that everyone else is like them.
But I think what's happened is that everyone's expectation today in terms of technology, even if you're a user of a very sophisticated enterprise platform like Aladdin, I think everyone's perspective is that it should be as easy as your phone. And the phone is setting the expectation with regard to all user interfacing, no matter if it's to order pizza, razors, or to figure out risk management for a $3 billion portfolio. And that trend, I think, is in very early days, but I think it's going to have a profound impact on both the financial industry and any other industry.
I mean, if I think about what we've been focused on for the last many years, right? We serve the mass affluent investor, the average investor. And they've been experiencing their phones since, 2007 or whenever? I mean, so we've had this trend for a long time of investors wanting simplicity. I don't want the paper. I don't want to sign a document. And we still are working in an industry where most people sign papers and fax things in. I mean, who has a fax?
It's simply amazing.
Right? I mean, it's unbelievable. So one of the mantras we talk about internally is simplicity is the new innovation. And we talk about that to help remind all of ourselves often that really taking the paper out of a process, streamlining something so you can do it all on your phone, those things are powerful for investors. And so sometimes we get caught up in talking about all these wonderful new technologies, which we invest in as well, right? So it's not that we don't believe in them, but there's a lot of the basics that can make a huge difference for the average investor that we need to focus on.
Is that mostly in the clearance of transactions? That's because that has been an intensely paper, a consuming effort forever.
Yeah, I mean, trading is mostly automated and very, very simply done, right? But I think about transferring money, right? Because of, we work in an industry where fraud is a risk and trust and security has to be, right?
Does, so,
you know
I think
it,
a little
right?
bit about it too, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you think about the paper aspect of that, or even just opening up a brokerage account, right? Opening up a brokerage account is a paper-laden experience for many folks, especially depending on the type of, a trust account, an organizational account, depending on what you're trying to do. So
How doing it across borders?
what was that?
Moving money across borders
Yeah.
is,
Again,
Well,
paper-laden.
we'll talk about this afternoon,
Yes.
it's impossible.
I'll
Yes.
confess, last week I
Yeah.
had to open an account for something, and I needed to call for help. I couldn't figure out how to get through the forms, which was very embarrassing, but at the same time, they're impossible for normal or better than normal humans to actually understand. They're impossible to get through.
Well, and I think this gets to sort of the notion of our panel, right, which is that there are people to whom our financial system, this is particularly for investing, does not touch a lot of people who would really be helped from the ability to invest. I mean, we know the stories that a significant percentage of Americans are $400 away from being completely broke, to say one paycheck. There's a lot of we hear the discussion of that sort of when election results come in, but I don't know if we think about that when we're thinking about the ability of people to invest. Do you guys see a market, or maybe I should ask even more detailed, where do you see a market that's just outside the walls of where you guys reach right now that technology will help you get to?
Well, I mean, for us, it's fairly simple in that, we want to be able to have more everyday clients be able to invest. And today, investing, there's kind of a barrier to invest unless you have a certain amount of money, and to invest logically. So not just buy a product, but one of the things that we worked on a couple years ago is a digital financial plan. So to get to the goals that Rob was highlighting, you really, what you need is a financial plan. And often you need to talk to somebody, but sometimes you can work that on your own if you have the right types of tools and guidance. But most investors don't have that and don't have the access to a certified financial planner because they can't afford
teach that
it.
in school,
They should, I think.
and yet they don't. And I mean,
It's
yeah.
just, these are the basics, and most investors can't access that because they don't have the wealth. And so, in order to drive down the cost of a digital financial plan, let's say, we need to leverage technology. And essentially, we think about it as the technology, the foundation, we wrap it all around a CFP, a certified financial planner, so we can use that certified financial planner very specifically on that emotional connection, on that making sure that the client really understands what they're asking for or educating them, and then the technology can do the rest. And by doing that, we can drive down the cost of investing.
But so let me get back to that. Where is that customer? What does that customer look like? Are they younger? Are they less affluent? Are they Spanish speaking? Are they what are you looking at?
Well, I mean, our population is changing, right? And that's exactly. I mean, when we look at actually Schwab clients, for example, who came in last year, about 54% of Schwab clients who came in last year are 40 or younger. So we are bringing in, and Schwab is a 45-year-old company, so we are bringing in lots and lots of younger investors, demographically representing kind of what our nation represents. Now, I think that we still have a challenge in those investors who don't even, of those folks who don't even know that they should be investing, right? And they're in their 401ks, and they're trying to figure out what to do with an IRA.
Or they're paying off school debt.
Paying off school debt, right? We still have a huge opportunity. But I think that technology has to be the key to drive down the cost of investing and help it become more accessible to those people.
Rob?
I don't think we could underestimate the access that technology provides with regard to, there's often this debate between human versus machine.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is in financial services, a lot of people with lower wealth points, they can't afford the human. They just can't afford the human advice. It's expensive. So the ability to give them access to technology solutions, to digital advice solutions, is a really important element of society when you look at many of these gaps, particularly retirement gaps, as we just referenced. And at BlackRock, our deep passion is that we believe we're really good at helping people have transparency into portfolios and building portfolios. And it's our ambition to try to get those capabilities to democratize them in the greatest way possible and get them in the hands of as many individuals as possible. And I think it's a good thing. I think if people had more access to build better portfolios, funny enough, it's actually not only good for the individuals, I think it's very important to society and many of the looming challenges that we face just as the civilized world.
Well, and we're also, it's interesting to me, we've seen some sort of real volatility in the market. October was a month where there was a lot of red on the screen, which as a recovering short seller was always a good month for me, but bad for everybody else. But those are the times I feel like you have the opportunity in your industry to hear from your customers and maybe hear from new customers. I mean, I told you the story, Rob. Mm-hmm. When I was a short seller, I would call, my screen was covered with green and I was pulling my hair out. I would call other short sellers because they would complain to me about some stock that they thought was a fraud. I would add that to my list of things to research. Right. But that was a good idea. I would imagine that's also the time you guys get a chance to hear from your customers and help them along.
Yeah, especially in those digital advice offers, what we see is during those times of volatility, our call volume spikes. I mean, we have lots more volume of folks calling in to ask questions. The nice thing is that once they talk to somebody, they often stay invested. So they don't sell at the wrong time, which is typically otherwise what people do, without that conversation. So it really does, that combination of people and technology is very powerful. We just have technology do a lot of the heavy lifting so the person can do that. Again, calm that person, give them the education that they need in that moment when they're worried.
And just critically important from an investing perspective, the number one asset most people have is time. The number one asset that most people don't take advantage of is time. Mm-hmm. So the whole key in terms of giving people more financial literacy, in terms of building wealth, is that concept of patience and patient investing, going back to the outcome that you're striving for. For most people, the investments that they're creating offer an outcome that's really long-term. And as we all know, the sooner you invest, it's the Warren Buffett, the miracle of compound interest. The ability to do that very early and capture that benefit and stick with it is really where technology could be dangerous, because everyone has the screen that only professionals had previously, but also quite important in terms of ongoing opportunities.
The only thing we don't have is time, but thank you very much, Rob Goldstein and Nisha Hathi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.